obviously a subcontractor before you got your own contract, so it's not like you were brand new to delivery and this was the first time anyone had been out, is it?
No, and I've been in the sector for 20 years, so I've been through a number of Ofsted and previous inspectorate body inspections anyway. So,
Yeah.
although this was a monitoring visit under a new contract for Springfield, none of us as a team are new to this.
None of the team are new to it. Right, okay. Fair enough. So who was the nominee? Was that yourself?
It was, yes.
And have you obviously you've been through visits before, but was this your first time as a nominee or not?
No, I've been a nominee for a number of years.
Right, okay, fair enough. And your staff had been through this before, you say, as well?
Yeah, we have a mixed range of people, but the majority of teachers and the SLT have been through inspections before in previous companies.
Right, got you. So obviously you'll have realised you were in scope for inspection, you know, the minute you had your own direct contract and the minute that you enrolled learners onto that. I assume, anyway.
Yeah.
So what kind of things were you putting in place out Springfield, prior to getting the call? You've obviously got good experience in this, so you knew it was going to come. So what kind of stuff were you doing before you'd even heard from them, if you like?
Well, there's a mixture of things there, because there are things that Ofsted demand, and so, and the ESFA, so the funding agency.
Yeah. So I got as far as you said, there's a number of things that the Ofsted and the SFA want you to have, and then you went. So go on, you can start that again.
Right. So we're looking at a self-assessment report, improvement plan. Yeah. So we have to have those in place. But what we decided as a company was that we wanted to do things differently. So we wanted to essentially disrupt the market as it stands, because quite often what you find is that providers will push, and this isn't a criticism of providers, but they push the qualifications that they're able to offer onto companies as a best fit rather than looking at what actually fits.
Got you.
And so what we decided to do was we'd only work in areas where we were a proper fit, a good fit. And within those areas, we wanted to start with the end user first. So we start with the apprentice and make sure that not only are they the right person and we're setting our stall out by their goals. So we want to understand who they are, what they want from this as a program, and then put customer service at the heart of what we do. And that's why we came out reasonably well, because rather than looking at it from an Ofsted point of view and how we make our delivery fit the framework, we looked at the customer first. We looked at the end user and made sure that we met their needs as well as their employers' needs, and then looked at how that met the requirements of Ofsted.
Right. Well, that kind of answers another question, because I noticed on your report you do quite a range. You do an interesting range, ranging from team leader to adult social care to engineering. I thought that's an interesting mix of different apprenticeships, but that's obviously referring back to what you just said, isn't it?
It is. I think what we did was, we work primarily across the M62 corridor, mainly in the Yorkshire and Humber region.
Okay.
We only step outside of the Yorkshire and Humber region if we work with companies that have multiple sites and they want us to work across those sites.
Got you. And are they levy paying these employers, or have you got non-levy as well?
Well, we got both.
Right, fair enough.
But what we did was we aligned our delivery, so we aligned the courses to the left priorities in the Leeds City region and Hull.
Got you. Well, they'll like you for that. Yeah.
So we only deliver courses where there's sustainable employment, and we aligned ourselves to the left priorities. And where we deliver care, sort of healthcare stuff, is probably a loss leader. We wipe our own nose with it if we're lucky, but the funding's really poor for that. But we offset that against some of the better paid engineering and food manufacturing stuff. But within the left regions where we operate, the healthcare market is a priority growth area. And so they're looking at how they introduce more people into that as a sector, improve the skills within that sector. And the theory behind it is we'll be able to drive up the wages as well.
Right, got you.
So that's why it's such an interesting mix of qualifications.
It is. I was like, how do you go from care to engineering? But anyway, that's obviously the answer.
Yeah, that's why.
Right, fair enough. So, in terms of the visit itself, how much notice did you get? 2 days, normal, or what?
Yeah, we got a call on Monday morning.
Sorry, you broke up then. You got a call Monday?
And they started on Wednesday.
Right, got you. So you got the call. What happened next? Panic stations, or you knew what you were doing, and the plan went into action?
Well, I think the idea of the call is once you've got that, it's too late to do anything else. So if you don't have stuff in place, you can work around the clock, and you're not going to get it in place. No. By the time you get the call, there's no point in panicking because it's happening and there's nothing else you can do about it.
So imagine between the Monday and the Wednesday, you had certain things you needed to do. I imagine, I don't know, I'm guessing here, but I imagine they wanted, a list of employers and learners and contact details, and they wanted to speak to them. Is that right, or more to that?
Well, no, I think most of what was required was done on the Monday. So the new bit to this, because my last inspection under the Common Inspection Framework was a few years ago, and so getting the call, within 30 minutes, I was then speaking to the lead inspector, who set out what she wanted from us on that day. And you now upload all your timetables into the Ofsted portal. So you just upload stuff that the inspectors have at.
Got you. So how many inspectors were there when they came?
We had 3, and we had 2 of them spent a full day at one employer.
Did they really? And how many of your apprentices were with that employer?
We've got, I would say, probably about 30 apprentices with that one employer.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
A key to getting a good understanding of what we do, but at the same time, we're with that employer every Wednesday and Thursday. And we have a classroom on their site. And so because the inspection was Wednesday and Thursday, it made sense for them to base themselves there as well.
Well, that's perfect. So, I imagine...
Sorry.
Go on. No, go on.
No, I was just going to say, by midday of the Monday, we'd uploaded all our details, all the required information, including a draft timetable that we put together based on what they requested. They didn't request named apprentices or named employers. They requested a mix of that, and they wanted to see essentially what was taking place in terms of our delivery. With the exception of wanting to go to that main site, we chose who they saw and what they saw.
Right, okay, I'm with you. Right, well, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. So the employers, certainly the levy-paying employers, did they buy into this well? Because I think I'm right in saying, well, they need to, for your sakes, but I think as a levy-paying employer, they could be subject to a visit themselves anyway. Is that right?
Only if they're delivering. They've got.
Oh, right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things we do is we do really work well in partnership with our employers, and whether it's levy or non-levy, we send out regular emails updating them on our progress in terms of Ofsted, what Ofsted look for, why Ofsted are involved in the process. So I can't say that every contact we have will sit and diligently read everything we write about Ofsted, but it's there. So when it comes to Ofsted, and when we said, look, we've had the call, you need to be involved, nobody was anything less than really positive and supportive.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I assume when they were there, especially at this one employer that you talk about, I assume they spoke to the employer, but I assume they watched sessions within this classroom you've got as well.
Yeah. They observed a session. They spoke to a range of candidates, as well as the ops manager and the site HR manager, and the group HR director for that employer, because it's an international company. She flew back from Paris to talk with the lead inspector as well.
Oh, well, that's pretty positive. Oh, wow. I've got a good relationship with them.
Yeah, they're a French-owned company.
Right.
And so, and although she's based in the UK, she was in France, but she came back specifically to support us with that.
Well, that says something about the job that you're doing, the relationship that you have then, doesn't it?
Yeah, and part of what we do, because with the standards, it's all around knowledge, skills and behaviours.
Yeah,
and under those behaviours, we embed company values into our delivery of those behaviours. So when we work with employers, we're very much a part of their strategy in terms of what they're looking for.
Right, brilliant, brilliant. So you mentioned earlier about the SAR and the QUIP. Did they, obviously they've read that, did Ofsted, bring anything else out that you haven't highlighted? I don't want you to go into particular detail yet, but or everything that Ofsted highlighted, you'd already highlighted it yourself?
Yeah, they didn't really place a lot of emphasis on the SAR at all. And the QUIP itself, because it was something that we monitor every month, and we RAG rate it, and so we've got a history of all our QUIP actions. They didn't really dig, because we showed them our journey. They didn't look any further. It was a cursory glance, if you like.
Right. Well, fair enough. And what? Go on.
No, I was going to say, I have spoken to other people who have really been poor in terms of overseeing actions and using their QUIP. And if you're looking at the other way, so you haven't really done anything, that's when they start scratching the surface and they won't stop until they find something. Right.
I feel like they're onto something here, so they'll keep going with it. Yeah, that makes sense. So how, sorry, they were there Wednesday and Thursday, did you say? Or Friday?
Yes. No, just Wednesday and Thursday for the monitoring visit.
So how long was at the end of it, when you got your feedback, how was that organised?
Well, the feedback on day one, so the feedback to the nominee on day one, their findings, and then give you a list of what they're looking for in terms of day 2 to fill any gaps.
Right. Okay.
But when it comes to day 2 feedback and the formal feedback, during which they invite the funding agency in and the SLT, that literally is 5 minutes because they've made a decision by then.
Right. Right. And then, the report only got published, I think, probably a month later, didn't it? So have you got an idea of what's in the report, and they go away and do their internal stuff before it gets released and properly? Or do you get to see the report and approve it before it goes out?
What you have is, as a nominee, both on day 1, as I mentioned, and then on day 2, when they've reached their grading decision, you get that information anyway, and they feed back to you. But on day 2, there's no opportunity to comment on that. It's just factual feedback, and then they feed back to the SLT and ESFA after that. The next time you see the report is to check for factual accuracy, and by that they're really looking at things like making sure they identify your teaching staff by the correct term, or checking for spelling mistakes. There's nothing else you can do. It's just factual accuracy.
It's not up for debate. If you've said engineering and you don't even do engineering, I guess that'll be it.
But you're well aware of what's going to be in there before you get that factual accuracy report to check on.
Yeah. I've spoken to a few people in doing this, and there seems to be a link between people who keep the numbers relatively small initially. I should say this is for people's first monitoring visit, just to make that clear.
Yeah.
People who've kept their learner numbers relatively small seem to be doing better in terms of, let's concentrate on getting the systems and the processes and everything in place, and let's have the first monitoring visit, if not indeed the first full visit, before we start concentrating on numbers. You've got less than, you had at the time, certainly, it says 78 apprentices. Now you've had a decent monitoring visit. Are you looking to increase that now that, on the back of a decent monitoring visit, or how's that working?
No, I think, from our point of view, we've scaled up at the rate of the employer's request. So we haven't deliberately held it back. And I think certainly when you start looking at some of the bigger companies, my view is people that have come up short, and when you equate it to larger numbers of apprentices, have come up short because they've either got multiple delivery areas, or they just generally haven't got process in place, and they probably weren't experienced enough to start at that stage. Because I think it's harder, from experience, to be inspected with smaller numbers, because the spotlight's on fewer people. If you've got larger cohorts, they will look holistically at that cohort. If you start talking about single or early double figures, then they will dig further.
Right, got you. I suppose you've got that view. If you're only in the 10s and 20s, one lot of bad feedback from one learner is a big chunk of your learner numbers, isn't it, percentage-wise?
Absolutely. And if they're in a monitoring visit, they might look at 10, 15, 20% of your learners. If you're looking at really small numbers, it will be closer to 100%.
Right, got you. Fair enough. Well, Well, you certainly seem to know what you're doing, Noel, I'm pleased to say. I'd like to think that with 20 years experience or whatever you said on the about. Here's a question for you. If you had your time again, is there anything, with just talking about the visit, is there anything you would have done differently about it? Or are you happy with what you did and happy with the way it all turned out?
Well, I'm happy with the way it turned out, and although I would have liked to achieve significant progress rather than reasonable, I've got nothing I can complain about. I think from an operational point of view, when you're starting a new business, it comes with all the sort of growing pains that you expect. And if you're starting it, as we did, from the ground up, then you don't have that significant investment in there. And you do make mistakes. You do it knowingly, but you make those mistakes, albeit consciously or otherwise, and you've got to just live with that. And I think in terms of our inspection, because we started with the end user at the forefront of everything we do, then we were in a better position to manage Ofsted, because we were still making those growing pain mistakes. And
no, I get
what we have is our organisational chart is inverted, so all our teaching staff are at the top.
Oh, I like that. That's nice.
What we have is, in terms of importance, we've got the teaching staff, then the support staff, and then it gets smaller, so it's that inverted triangle to show
don't tell me you're at the bottom.
I'm sorry, the way of the world and all that. But, I mean, apart from, we want to prioritise the candidates and their employers and our teaching staff as being the most important. And not only just doing that, but if we show that, and so there's the perception as well as the actual doing. So it becomes more cultural and embedded, and that's why we did that.
Yeah. Brilliant. I love that. That's a good one, that. So now you've been through your monitoring visit, the clock's ticking on your main one within 24 months, if I'm right in thinking.
That's right. Yeah.
So since now you've had the visit and you've had the feedback and the report, and now you've got the full one on its way. What are you doing? Anything any differently? Are you looking at certain things because of the visit? Is the monitoring visit itself pushing you in a particular direction or focusing your mind on particular things with a view to the full inspection now?
I think we were already at the point where we were focusing differently, and part of that is we'd invested in a new MI system because our previous one was just a homemade one.
Right.
And although it did everything we wanted it to, and more, we want to move to something better. So we were on the road to that, which with the new MI we can pretty much get the information we need at 1 or 2 clicks of a cursor, where with the old one it might have been 4 to 5 clicks.
All right, fair enough.
So we're getting.
Yeah.
I was just going to say we're getting better at using data across the group. So we use data to make decisions and inform decisions. So we're doing that more. Although we've had people go through the endpoint assessment, and so far everybody that's gone through has gone through with a distinction.
Brilliant.
Well, the thing is as well, I mean, it is, and we're pleased with that, but they were small numbers and deliberately small, so we could test out the water and understand the process. Once we start putting larger numbers through, then it's unlikely we'll maintain a 100% distinction or even merit. You know, it's going to start dropping down somewhat. So we're looking at how we manage the endpoint assessment and that gateway process to make sure that people go through first time and get the best grades that they can.
Yeah. Well, again, it's all about the learner, isn't it? What you're doing there. So that all comes into the jigsaw, doesn't it?
It does, and we've had issues with, in some cases, we've got apprentices that think they should be going through the gateway, and when we have a meeting with them and their employer's got a completely different view of that, and so there's tensions, but the good tensions, because it shows that we're working in that sort of tri-party way as well.
Well, at least they're keen. That's the first thing, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that enthusiasm without sort of giving them a kick for not being at the stage they need to be.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you've done a good job, Noel, because actually you've managed to answer some of my questions without me even asking you them. So that's all.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right, don't worry. So are you still operating as a subcontractor? Is everything that you do now your own direct delivery?
Are we still what, sorry?
Are you still a subcontractor to other people, or is every learner you put through now under your own direct delivery?
No, because we operate on some longer courses. We've got engineering at traditionally sort of 3 years now. And so I think with our subcontractors, we've got one that runs out in December 2020, and I think the other one might be January of 2022.
Right. No, what I was meaning was, any new starts now, are they all direct, all on your own direct contract starts now?
Yes, all new starts are. But unfortunately, our wind down contracts are going to take a while to wind down. So, and it must be hard for the lead provider to manage that, because it's hard for us to manage their systems as our numbers drop with them. But we've got to manage that
when you've only
process
got when you're down to just a handful and we're on these long courses, that's not ideal for either party, is it?
No, it isn't, and everything then amplifies. So a problem using management information for those candidates, sending invoices, everything becomes more expensive and more amplified as the numbers drop. But again, from both parties, that's part of the process, and we're just open and honest about it, then we've just got to manage it.
Yeah. I suppose some of these prime providers would be disappointed to see decent subcontractors go once they get themselves their own contract, won't they?
Well, I think the concern with subcontracting now is that, unlike previously where they took a percentage and just disappeared into background, now they've got to be in the forefront and proving what they're doing for that sort of money, and that's what they're struggling to do that. So the primes that we work with struggle to justify their management fee, and I know quite a lot of primes that are walking away from it because they just don't know how to get involved.
Because they're supposed to be doing some of the delivery as well, aren't they now?
Yeah, and even we've worked with some grade 1 lead providers, national grade 1 providers, and they're rubbish. And it's a shame to say that, but I think coming from a public sector background, I've seen colleges manipulate data and prepare for Ofsted like it was a big operation, during which everybody becomes flustered, stressed, upset, unhappy, and they hide all the bad learners and hide all the bad staff. We built our business on basically just offering the opposite to the worst experiences we've witnessed. And if I'd never hide anything, I'd rather get a poor result and a good action plan than try and lie my way through something and not be able to live up to that.
Yeah. And at least if you get that poor result, at least it's honest, and you can do something about it.
Absolutely. And I know certainly from the team of the people that have been involved in inspections before, that were quite surprised at how laid back they felt it was. And it wasn't. It was hard work and it was stressful and all those things. But it wasn't that, stay here till midnight and do this and fill this form in because we don't have it. We just wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
No. I mean, someone said to me recently, it's like a free evaluation of how you're doing, because you don't pay for it, do you? Ofsted come out for nothing. But on the flip side of it is, there's a hell of a lot riding on it, really. If you don't get at least reasonable in all three on your monitoring visit, it can be catastrophic for your business if all of a sudden you can't enrol any more learners for a while, possibly forever. There is a lot.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter, and as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter how well you feel you're doing. You've got to get that information across to the inspectors. And even for us, on day one, I thought it was going reasonably well until feedback, and then realised that it wasn't going anywhere near as we'd expected. But the inspectors were speaking in a language that our apprentices didn't understand. If they couldn't speak to somebody, because most of our people aren't allowed to take their phones into the workplace with them. Right. And so if they couldn't get them on their phone, they didn't continue trying endlessly. And so we had to regroup and make a conscious decision to be quite tenacious about pushing inspectors where we wanted them to go, because where they said, you're not showing evidence of the impact that you're telling us you're making. I said, well, we are, and this is how we're going to prove it. And so we went out and we literally had apprentices queuing up off the shop floor, but we took them off the shop floor. And we coordinated that approach to everything and made sure that the inspectors then saw what we saw.
Well, thank God you were proactive then in that respect.
Well, the hard thing about a monitoring visit is 2 days is no time at all to showcase what you do.
Agreed.
And so the only way we can get that across to them and make sure we showcase the best of everything we do was to go out there and coordinate it on their behalf. And but at this point, I didn't ask the inspectors. I told them what we were doing and why we were doing it, and we went out and just did it. And so I was back at the office coordinating the inspectors while I had a team out on site coordinating the apprentices or their boss or whoever it might have been, and we just got them all to the phone. And
I'm sure the employers were delighted with staff being taken off the shop floor, but it is what it is, I guess.
Well, again, they were really supportive because we'd arranged all this on day one, and when it didn't take place, employers were saying, well, they haven't spoken to you know, X, Y, and Z people, and we were expecting them to phone. And then when we tried to suss out what had happened, we realised what the problem was. So we went out there and coordinated it. And again, the employers were really supportive of that.
No, very good. You've got a good bunch of employers, or you're doing something right with them because they seem to like you.
Well, I think again, it's just having that honest approach. Tell them what you need, tell them why you need it, tell them what you're doing, and if you tell them when things are going well or going less so, then at least you've got that clarity there, and people appreciate you being honest with them.
Yeah, got you. Right, look, I am conscious of your time, Noel. What are you most proud of? Looking at this, you know, the whole, experience that you've been through with the monitoring visit. What's the bit that you feel was the biggest success out of it? What's the bit that you're most proud of?
I suppose the bit I'm most proud of really is the team I've got working with me, because they pull this together and they create, because ultimately this is about the impact on the learner, and they create that positive impact for the learner. So that's my starting point.
Very good. It's a good answer. I like it. Right, you're a legend, Noel. Thank you very much indeed for that. It's very useful.